Hello, everybody, and welcome to another adventure in history. Hope that you all are having a wonderful time zone and that things are treating you as well as possible. Off the bat, very quiet. Thank you. I'll say it very quietly. Thank you for the subscription. I don't know if I was supposed to say who did it, but thank you for being Spartacus. Allie Briggs in the house. I've been purposefully not bothering you because I figured that like when you were ready, you would message me. But maybe that was the wrong thing to do. Maybe I needed to be professional and send you something. I don't know. What up, Allie? Hope you're having a good one. Moose. I am Spartacus, Frank. That's appreciative. We're all Spartacus here. It's all good. It's all good. Just didn't want you to think that I had forgotten or had gone away. I'm still around. Getting visited by a puppy. We are Groot. Indeed. Indeed. I like it. Though hopefully one of us doesn't get almost catastrophically destroyed at the end of that scenario, like the show. Anyway, that's kind of sad and probably shouldn't think about it. He survived. He survived. He survived, right? Spoilers, by the way, right? Yeah, so welcome in. This is Adventures in History, where we talk about history and we make fun out of history, and we also just make fun of history sometimes. Because we can do that. DCI Banks, what up? How's it going? How's things? How's everybody? Hope you're doing well. I'm doing okay. Had a pretty good day yesterday. I feel very accomplished after yesterday. Got a lot of stuff done. Got a lot of stuff ready. Today, not as successful. Was not as productive, but that was partially because there's a lot of stuff sort of like coming out of the woodwork. It's registration week, so there's a lot of moving pieces, and we can't always see where the pieces are going to arrive, and ended up having to talk to a couple of students that I didn't have on the schedule, which is fine. It's all fine. It's just like, I get jumbled and stuff happens, right? So there we go. But we are here, and we're going to have a good time. We're going to talk about a war that's referred to as the 100 Years' War, even though it's 116 years long, which never really made sense to me. They should call it the 116-year war, but it just doesn't have the same ring to it. Right? Nobody wants to say, you just mean the 116-year war. Like, forget you, man. Just say the 100 Years' War, and we'll just go with that, right? This is one of those situations where I tell my history students that if you're ever having to guess which two countries in Europe are fighting, and they say medieval period, just guess England and France, and you've got a pretty good shot of getting it right. They don't really get along very well, which is, again, one of the things that I also like to talk about when we get to history, especially when we get to World War I, and I go, and then England and France are on the same side, and people are like, what? Because they're not natural allies. They just both didn't like Kaiser Wilhelm, so there you go. Anyway, whole centuries ahead of where we are right now. The French fart in your general direction? They do. Especially in fanciful Arthurian legend, right? So this is a viewer request night. This is something that the viewers requested and something that the viewers voted on, and it won. So here we go. Now let's talk about the 100 Years' War. Now, as always, could you be a bit louder with the scratching there, puppy? To be a bit of the history teacher that I am, we're not going to just start with the very beginning. We need to back up and do a little bit of groundwork and explain a little bit of what's going on in the larger sort of world of this particular period of time. We're going to be talking mostly about a period of time which runs from the early 1300s to the mid 1400s. But what's going on in this zone? So this is like the late medieval period. And we've got a few things going on. First big thing going on. Countries are figuring out that they can be countries first and Christians second. Now, that seems like, what are you talking about? That's not that big of a deal, but it actually is a pretty big deal, historically speaking. When the Pope usually said stuff and snapped his fingers and made things happen, everybody usually got in line. And that's the way that things had gone for about 1,000 years. But countries during this period of the 1300s and into the 1400s are starting to kind of figure out that they can be a little bit more independent. And they don't necessarily have to follow exactly what the Pope says. And that's going to be an important thing here, because that's going to allow them to operate a little bit more unilaterally. Instead of always having to sort of fall back on the church's guidance, they're going to be able to kind of do what they want. And it turns out that monarchs appreciate being able to do whatever they want. And this is going to become a theme, which of course leads all the way up to the Protestant Reformation, which is in the middle 1500s. Now, we're also going to be going through a really substantial period of famine. And this is frequently referred to historically as the Little Ice Age. And it sort of starts around, well, it depends on where you want to start putting numbers down. Somewhere roughly between the 700 late period to the early mid 1300s, like 600 or 700 years there, where things just get cold again. And we're not talking about giant glaciation that's going to cover half the continents of Europe and North America. We're not talking about that. What we are talking about, though, is a substantial drop in arable land. This is going to be a period of time where there's just not enough food to feed everybody. This is going to combine with other periods, stuff that we'll talk about actually later on in a couple of weeks on Adventures in History, with stuff like the Viking invasions, etc. There's going to be a lot of other stuff that plays into this period of time, but the early 1300s are not going to be great when it comes for the dinner menu. It's going to be pretty poor fare. Everybody's going to be kind of in bad shape. Now, when you don't feed people, this does a lot of stuff to a population. First off, it makes them unhappy. It turns out people like food, right? I mean, I like food. I just spent like an hour longer than I wanted to getting ready to eat dinner, and I was getting kind of grouchy. That was an hour, right? These are people that are getting like a solid meal a day, maybe, across the European continent. It's not good times. Also, when people get grouchy, people get like violent. So there are going to be a lot of rebellions going on during this period of time. And some of these are rebellions of peasants against nobility, but there's also going to be a lot of land pilfering, because it turns out when there's not a lot of land, you want as much as you can put in your pocket and run away with, because that's how you end up making food. If you can control more land, then you're going to have more food. But there's not really like a lot of land being made. You know, there's not like the land store where you can go buy a couple acres and just put it in your backyard and have just a bigger backyard. So you have to take it from somebody else. So there's also a ton of internal crises when it comes to nobility. Who gets to control what land? Who gets to put whose name on what land? Da-da-da-da-da. And this is going to cause a lot of internal instability. Now, the side effect of all of that, because there's more, is taxation. Because it turns out that when nobles fight each other, it's the poor people that pay taxes. So, if we're going to have constant rebellions, we're going to have to pay for armies all the time, which means we're also going to have to raise taxes. Because that's just kind of how it goes, which is unfortunate. But this is a scenario that we can see play out time and time again. What up, KP? How's it going? So there's not a lot of food. People get mad. They fight a whole lot. There's instability internally, and that causes higher taxes. Eat the rich. There we go. We need more Robin Hoods. Well, it's around this time period that Robin Hood stories start up in the first place, right? Robin Hood is associated with a period of time where the King of England was off on crusade. That's in the 1100s, right? So we're not too terribly far away from that, and that particular period of time is during our little ice age, right? So this sounds familiar. Texas, T goes into the sea, right? You absolute 1990s slightly obscure song referencing dropping nerd. I'm glad somebody got that one this fast. I didn't know how many people would know this one, but I was going to go with it anyway, just because, you know what? That's how it goes. I've been downhearted, baby. It's one of your favorite songs. There we go, Maddie. Good to see you. Hope you're having a good one. Ever since the day we met. Anyway, Primitive Radio Gods. If you don't know it, go check it out. Anyway, so there's a lot of this stuff kind of going on in the background. Now, also, to add to this little Ice Age issue and countries becoming a little bit more independent of the church issue and internal instability issues and all of that other stuff, there's also the fact that nobles in Europe intermarry lots. It's sort of what they do. It's kind of their go-to move, right? What are we going to do? Just go marry your cousin. Well, what does that end up doing? Over time, what this does is it basically means that all of the royal families are related to all of the other royal families. Yeah, there's some inbreeding going on for sure. They came out around the same time as No Doubt, and I thought Primitive Radio Gods was going to be huge, and No Doubt was a one-hit wonder. Yeah, it turns your... Yeah, it's more of a family shrubbery. It's more like a family hedge. It just kind of goes out horizontally, and it doesn't go up. Yeah, I mean, the human race itself is... Well, I mean, not so much anymore. But if we go back to... I don't know, right around the end of the last Ice Age, there were only a few million, maybe 10 million humans on Earth total, right? So, this happens much longer than you would think it. Yeah, exactly. Those genes were spread like butter over too much bread. I see that Tolkien reference there. I appreciate that a lot. The Spanish royal family turned into a cactus. Is that a dig at Latin America, Maddie? Because if so, I'm going to have to give you the reluctant thumbs up on that one. They definitely... Anyway. Okay, so this is a mess of a world that we're looking at. Now, if we look at the map... Wait for this one. Here's what Europe looked like. And you're like, I don't know those countries. There's a reason. The Spanish royal family turned into a circle that collapsed into a straight line. Oh, well, there we go. There's a whole bunch of countries here. And they probably don't look like what you might expect countries to look like, because the borders aren't the same, right? Like, what are all of these? Well, there are reasons. What is this? There are reasons. And this big thing? What's this big thing? Again, reasons. Yeah, mutations, some of them are actually super beneficial. That's what ends up driving the whole concept of adaptation in the first place. It's just beneficial mutations. Mutations were less prominent then, too, and we're talking cancer more. Yeah, exactly. Nobody's getting mutant powers back in the day. Though there was a really interesting comic book that came out back in 2011 or 2012, and the premise was that the only people in the world that had superpowers were the European noble families. It was an interesting premise, and really it was just a sort of a social commentary on hoarding wealth as opposed to hoarding superpowers, but it was okay. Um, yeah. So there we go. There's a whole bunch of stuff here. There's a whole bunch of plays, a whole bunch of new people, a whole bunch of stuff around that's like, what is all of this stuff? What is that stuff? There's a friggin' Khanate over here. Those are the Mongolians. Russia at that point was basically not independent. It was a commentary on the... Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. So you could see here, we've got a lot of stuff going on. But specifically, if we look at what's going on over here, we see France. And France isn't what France looks like today. And there's a reason for that. Because we have England and Wales, and they're sort of this peachy color here. And they also control part of Ireland. They control this little part right here, France. And they control this whole region on here called Gascony. This is all part of England, and this is part of Wales. And you're like, what the devil is going on here? Well, the reason is political inbreeding. When the Normans conquered England, the Normans were from the northern part of France. They had territorial claim to part of France. They moved up here. They took over England. They combined those territories. And, then 200 years passed, and everybody's still arguing over who controls this territory. And that is more or less going to be what starts this whole mess. And it starts when this guy dies. So this guy right here is Charles IV of France. And he's going to die in 1328. Now, kings die all the time. Why is this one different? Well, he doesn't have any brothers, and he doesn't have any sons. So that means he doesn't have an heir. Now, you go, okay, well, haven't there been female rulers? Well, see, that's the thing. The French had actually just passed a law not too previous before this that said that women couldn't inherit the throne. We're not to Matilda yet. This would be another situation. Yeah, women couldn't hold the throne. So he does have a daughter that actually does try to claim the throne. It doesn't work out so great. But his closest male relative happens to be this guy. This guy's Edward III, who's the King of England. Now, as you might see, this is going to cause a problem because the French don't want the British, or sorry, I shouldn't say the British. The French don't want the English to inherit all of France, because that would make one big country, and that just wouldn't sit well with any of the French nobility. So what do we do here? Well, the French nobility decide we're going to just pick somebody else, and we're going to go find a cousin that's kind of a not direct line in the royal family cousin, but close enough because he's at least French, and we end up with this guy. No, we can't have queens. They had passed a law that said you can't have queens. What's up, Tanker? How's it going? Foggage, how's it going? I see you sneak in there. What's up? Yeah, we have decided that you don't have the people. Yeah, cousin, right, yeah. And we can't have take-backsies. No take-backsies, exactly. So this guy becomes Philip the Sixth of France. Philip the Sixth of France. So let me just put these people... And we'll just put E and F beside them. So Edward III is King of England. Philip VI is King of France. You've had some health problems, but you're good now, ready to learn. I'm sorry to hear that you've had health problems. But it's good to hear that you're back by. Nepo baby for the win. Mac would approve you giving France an F. It's a placeholder. It's not a letter grade. There's no grade of E, so it doesn't really matter. Now, a literal Nepo baby because he was somebody's nephew. This is correct. He was not in a direct line. He was just related and breathing and French, and notably not Edward III of England. So there we go. Now, as you might expect, this causes problems because part of that territory that was in France was directly controlled by Edward III. This is that southern region called Gascony. And technically speaking, he was supposed to swear fealty as lord of that territory to the French king. Now, this is a weird scenario here, where Edward doesn't think Philip is actually legitimately the king. And there's a good case to be made that he wasn't legitimately the king if the French were following even their own rules. But at this point, Edward was like, you know what? I'm not particularly interested in starting a war. We've had some trouble here at home. There's not a lot of food. You know, we've had a whole bunch of chaos going on. I'm just going to try to do the more or less nice thing. And I'm going to say, I don't respect you and I'm going to claim the throne. And then when the French put their foot down and go, no, we're not accepting you, he's like, all right, fine. And he does fealty to Philip VI. Now, this is supposed to be the end of the issue, right? Supposedly, when this happened, Philip said, okay, I recognize that you control Gascony. I recognize that you are sovereign of England, but that I am technically your king for this particular portion. I recognize that you've done fealty to me, which means that I'm technically your lord. And then they are supposed to sort of like wash their hands and walk away. And that holds for a little bit. Just a little bit. I thought regents intermarried to prevent stuff like this. Well, they did, but this also causes the side effect of everybody basically being related to everybody else. And it's okay. You can type whatever you want to in the chat. I'll let it through. I just don't say it out loud. All well. All is well. So, things should have been okay. And then, about 1336-ish, Philip decides, you know what? I'm kind of tired of having the English king ruling part of my country. So we should just go take Gascony. And they invade. And the English at that point are like, wait, what now? We did the thing. We said the words. We did the promise thing, and now you're invading us. And I gave up a rightful claim to the throne for you to go do this in the long run? No. So Edward goes, you know what? I'm going to reinstate my claim to the throne, and I don't think Philip is a legitimate king. So now it's on. And Edward is going to declare war in 1337. That couldn't possibly lead to global thermonuclear war or anything. Yeah, right? Folks being so connected and forming alliances. Yeah. Everybody being family. Families never argue about anything, right? But we have matching friendship bracelets, right? We went out and we sang all the songs around the campfire, and we did the blood oath promise thing, and it's out. And things are going to de-escalate pretty rapidly here. Things are going to go downhill real fast. Now, what's really interesting, and this is kind of a rarity that you might not necessarily expect if you know a whole lot about history. At this point in time, the French Navy was actually significantly better than the British Navy. I keep saying British, and I really shouldn't say British. English Navy. The French Navy was better than the English Navy. And that's not really a common thing in history. And this is going to be a deciding factor for about 3 years while England and Edward are trying to send reinforcements to their outposts on the mainland. The French Navy is running around blocking them. And this is going to be pretty effective. And it's going to keep the French forces alive. They're going to be able to fend off the English soldiers that are on the mainland. And the war is going to go pretty well while that holds. It doesn't hold forever, though. In 1340, there's a big old naval battle at this place called Slees. It's not spelled Slees, it's Sluys. But what ends up happening here is that the English Navy breaks the back of the French Navy and destroys most of their warships. This was a crushing defeat, and it was a really, really big moment in this early part of the war. Thought the English Navy was the strongest. Yeah, one would think so. The issue here, though, is that the English, at that point in time, had fairly comfortable control over the territory in southern France, and they didn't really feel like they needed the big navy. This is before England had this global empire that they were trying to project their power into. The English Navy really didn't become what we would consider the sort of global powerhouse navy that it became until the 1700s, really. Other countries gave them pretty good runs for their money prior to that. So depends on when we want to get specific. I'm going to be on the page that says they really don't decide to become the global naval powerhouse until the end of the 7 Years' War. They had been building up a navy prior to that for sure, but there's a light switch moment that happens during the 7 Years' War where they go, we're just going to be the world's biggest navy and we're going to own it. And that's when I would put it, as like a deciding moment. And you can almost even look at it, watch it happen. Yeah, they were really good at just stealing other people's ships. They did that to America quite a bit after the Revolutionary War, which is what caused the War of 1812. And they did this to the Spanish as well. And anyway, long periods of time ahead of us. Grand Theft Auto, English Royal Navy, right? Anyway, didn't the English defeat the Spanish Armada? Yes. That was mostly due to strategery and playing into the anger of the Spanish king. They trapped them in the canal, or the strait here, the English Channel, whatever you want to call it. They trapped them there and threw some fire ships at them, and Francis Drake was brilliant, and there was some bad weather that happened just before the specific battle that kept them from being more organized. When you're good, you are lucky. Yeah, there's a lot of that involved as well. Anyway, after 1340, the French Navy is not going to be able to stop the English Navy from reinforcing their men on the continent. And this is going to really start shifting the war. The English are going to start bringing a lot of soldiers over, but they're not necessarily going to fight every single day, every single year. There's going to sort of be this season of war, the sort of back and forth time where it's like we're going to gear up and we're going to go fight a few battles and then we're going to kind of let it sit for a couple of months or something like that, right? This is all going to lead to a really decisive battle in 1346 at the Battle of Crécy, which is a really, really, really brutal fight. And the French are going to lose a lot of territory as a result of this. And one of the things that is going to be specifically strategic in this battle are these things. These are the good old-fashioned English longbows. How brutal. Like hand-to-hand chopping of pieces for hours kind of stuff. It's a pretty brutal battle. You can look it up if you want to. Because there's so many details here, I'm clearly going to have to be a little bit expedient when we're talking about this. If we went through the whole thing in detail, this could easily be 2 or 3 different streams. You could probably teach half of a semester on this. Anyway, the English longbow is going to be a really big deciding factor. It was capable of shooting much further than the French bows, and it didn't really take a whole lot of skill or training to use. You could just sort of give somebody the bow and say, just lob the arrow down the field at the bad guy, and you could be really effective at doing. It's a pretty big win for the English, because this is going to give them strategic advantage. Anytime that I can shoot you and you can't shoot me is a good time for me, right? And a bad time for you. We've got a puppy. You all want to see a puppy? You want to come and see me? Come here. Come on. She's stretching. You can see her little puppy butt right there. Come here. Well, come on. Oh, you got an itch now? Now we're itching. Now do you want to come and see me? Hey. Hey, come here. Come here. Kaylee, come here. Come here. Come on. Come here. Come see me. Come on. You can get right here. There you go. There's the puppy. There's the puppy. Hello, puppy. Oh, my goodness. What are you doing? Oh, hello. Oh, the ear scritches. Oh, yes. There's the puppy. She's been having a tough go of things in the last few days. She's, again, if you've been around, you'll know this, but she's afraid of her own farts. And she's been having gas a lot lately. So she's been having some tough days, which, that's a tough puppy life, right? You just woke up and you're confused about life. Tuna, that's unfortunate. Hopefully learning about how ancient people killed a whole bunch of themselves will clear that up for you. Oh, I gotcha. I was going to put fart, but flatulence is actually a lot better. Yeah, green herring, it's... if it weren't obviously traumatic, it would be a lot funnier. It would be a lot funnier. But it's actually not really very funny. It's just like... it's just a fart. Anyway, whole thing. The dog is... she's a mess. Anyway, longbows. They're decisive. This is going to be a big deal. Now, this is 1346. So if you're keeping up with the timeline, you'll know that something bad is about to happen. Because 1347, that's when the Black Death shows up. Yeah. So the height of the plague is 1347 to 1351. And that forces somewhat of a bit of a pause in some of the fighting, as you might expect. Because, everybody's dying. I'm reminded of a song that goes, well, everybody's dying, so till their tears are dry. We'll drink and drink and drink and drink, and then we'll drink some more. We'll dance and sing and fight until the early morning light. Anyway, go listen to Great Big Sea. Oh, yeah, that thing. Right? Longbows and yep. A game called on account of plague. We're gonna call a timeout because roughly half the population of Europe is about to die. Um, it's pretty bad. The plague, as we know, is pretty bad. 4,000 French deaths from 20 million population, might be 14,000 deaths now based on around 70 million population. Yeah, it's a substantial portion. It's also fair to note that the vast proportion of the people that did die were poor and laborers. These are the people that were having trouble with nutrition in the first place. It turns out if you don't eat a lot, your body gets weak and you get more susceptible to things like, I don't know, sickness. Yeah, so this is already compounding an existing compound situation. It's messy and gross, and a lot of people die from this. Now, this doesn't mean that the war completely stops. It just means that it's going to slow down quite a bit. This, is, of course, is going to destabilize food supply. This is going to destabilize international trade. This is, of course, going to, like, everybody is going to try to come out of this ahead, and nobody's going to be able to. The money situation is a wreck. Both of the countries involved are in pretty dire straits when it comes to financial situation. Wikipedia says 1.5k of 4k killed were nobles. I don't believe that. I think those numbers are probably wrong. If it's more than a third. What's a third of 4? Yeah, that's probably more than that's more than a third. 2/3 of the people that died from this were poor people. Yeah, yeah, that's still a minority. Yeah, but if the peasants die of plague, how will they die for my glory on the battlefield? That's a fair question, KP, and that's what a lot of the nobles were looking at. Now, the English are going to come out of the plague a bit better than the French did. Not to be said that either of them are having particularly good times, but they're going to come out of it a little bit better. And in the process of this whole mess, the English are going to get back started at the fighting again, faster than the French. And this is going to lead to a string of really big English victories. It's also fair to note that it is time to change this guy. The King of France is going to change to John II. I really prefer to call this guy by the French name. His French name is John the Good, which in French is Jean le Bon, which I think is just kind of a funny name to say, Jean le Bon. Anyway, bring out your dead, right? Exactly. It's harder for Ras to carry plague. Is he the lead singer of Duran Duran? Don't think so, but maybe? I don't know. I don't actually know the lead singer of Duran Duran's name. What's up, Rethius? We're on 100 Years War. Simon Le Bon. There we go. Okay. Thank you all for correcting me. Or for not correcting me, for teaching me, because I didn't know that. Anyway, this is Jean Le Bon, and he is the King of France. Now, are you late? Which phase of the 116 Years' War? We are in the immediate post-plague. We're in 1356. So we are at the Battle of Poitiers, where the English are going to decisively beat the French, and they're going to capture this guy. Jean is going to get captured by the English. And I don't know if you've ever played chess before, but if you capture the other side's king, that's usually a pretty good sign that you're winning. Now, we're still under Edward here, and he, at this point, is quite advanced in years. But he's still quite capable when it comes to figuring all this stuff out. So, the French king is in the hands of the English. The English have won decisive battles in French territory on the continent, and the French are in pretty dire straits. So, what do? Well, if you're the English, you make him sign a humiliating treaty that gives you all of the French territory that you want, makes them pay $2 million in ransom, and then gives you his kids to hold as collateral. Because that's what they did. Let's see. And unless the other side doesn't like their king and are happy to be done with him, right? Like, could you get a better captive, please? We're in so this is 1356, right? If you're a 1st century Viking king or a 9th century Viking king who gets captured, your people may have to pay a ransom. Because if you're a Viking and you get captured, you're a weakling anyway, right? You're not even worth being sacrificed to the gods. Let them sacrifice you to their god who let himself be killed. Right? Anyway. So yeah, the treaty that we get out of this is a rough one for the French. The English actually sit on this for about 4 years, trying to figure out exactly what they want and how they can deal with it. One of the reasons they do sit on this for so long is because they're also sort of working some side deals in the background of the French nobility. Because it turns out that inside of the French nobility, there are sort of 2 big power players. And the English were trying to play some background mechanics so that they could set up the field even better. Like, you've already got the French king. You want to make it better? They're like, yes, we would actually like to make it better if we could. But in 1360, they're going to sign a treaty called the Treaty of Bretigny. And it is really, really bad for the French. The French basically have to give up 1/3 of their country. If we look at the map here, all of this pink stuff gets formally ceded, including the city up here of Calais, which is in Flanders. This was a big deal because this was a really, really big port city. It's a lot of territory to lose. So not just Gascony, but also all of this other territory. And they've got to give it up because if they want their king back, their royal sovereign, you gotta do what you gotta do. And so they do. They sign him array for ransom. They pay tons and tons of money to get him back. Joan is forced to give up some of his kids as collateral, basically as a way of saying, like, I'm for sure going to hold on to the treaty. And things are looking pretty great for the English right about now. And things are going to kind of stay more or less okay for a little while. So there's a bit of a pause button. Just listen to the last podcast of the left doing like 4 hours on Gilles de Rais. Have I heard of this horrible man? I haven't. Or maybe if I have, I've forgotten who it is. But the name doesn't ring a bell. Maybe if I throw him into the Google, it'll pop something up. Gilles de Rais. Who is this person? Somebody that doesn't like it because my internet's going really slow. Contemporary of Joan of Arc, probably the worst child killer in history. Oh, I don't know about that. Baron de Rais was a knight and lord from Brittany, Anjou, and Poitou, leader of the French army. Convicted as a confessed serial killer of children. Oh, well, that guy's a jerk. Well, that's unfortunate. I see a lot of people who are like, is this the first serial killer? No. No. Worst child killer in history, still Mao Zedong. He killed more kids than any other human being has ever killed in history. Any like worst killer of thing, it's Mao. uh, nobody's going to ever come close to him unless somebody actually starts nuclear winter, and we can pin the extinction of the entire human population on one person. Mao Zedong is like pretty messed up. Worst child killer who saved Joan of Arc's life. Okay, cool. Well, I'll give you that. Yeah, Fate Zero is apparently jacked up, and I know this because it ruins all of my Google searches. I don't need a sexy anime Gilgamesh. I'm sorry, I just don't need it. So, things are kind of okay for a little while. But stuff starts back up in France. And this is going to be Civil War kind of stuff. And the reason why Civil War is starting up in France is because of a lot of this back and forth between parts of France and England and parts of France and Paris. Now, the two big sides are Burgundy and Orleans. Now, why do these two sides not care for each other? Well, part of it is geographic. Burgundy was much more geographically similar to England. There was not as much big open pasture land not as much as big open farmland. They were much more akin to pasture land. Orleans was much more agriculturally based, sort of your high feudal structure that you might expect when you think feudalism. Not that England didn't have feudalism, but there was a lot more sheep herding, goat herding, that kind of stuff going on in England than there were in other parts of Europe. England just doesn't have an overabundance of really good arable land. So parts of France were just closer to England in economy, and there was also part of France that was making a ton of money. This region called Flanders, which is up in the northern part of France. If we look at our map here, sort of this region up here, this region was making a killing off of English imports, specifically wool. They were bringing in a lot of this wool, and they were making fabric out of it. Maroon 5, right? So they had economic ties to England. And, well, just to be quite honest, they didn't like the ruling French family. So there's going to be civil war in France that starts the late 1300s. This is going to bubble over quite a bit until we end up with a new king. Specifically here in France, we're going to end up with Charles VI. The only time you worry about France is when it's not civil warring, right? So this is Charles VI. Now, this guy has some real issues. And when I say real issues, I'm not even trying to be like sarcastic. He honestly does appear to have some sort of legitimate mental illness. If you read the historical sources, he was quite capable of going into these really violent fits where he would draw a sword and attack his own people. This does appear to happen both during like active battle kind of thing, but also dinner. Not like the necessarily random temperament sort of like just kill everybody stuff, but like he would go attack people. Like he would have these spells where he would just get physically violent himself, and he would try to chop people's heads off and stuff like that. So having a king with this sort of predicament did not sit very well with the French. And they end up working out a scenario where he gets sort of his power taken away from him. He's going to get put under the control of a regency council. And it can't just be a regent, because we have these two big houses of France that are never going to agree to let one of the noble houses take over as regent, because effectively, in many cases, that would then give them the power of the throne. So they're going to have to make this council. They're going to try to rule France by committee. And we all know how that's going to end up. He could maybe not on Fifth Avenue, but maybe the Champs-Elysees, maybe so. When you're trying to run a country by committee and the committee members hate each other's guts, things just don't go. They just don't go great, right? Charles's wife is involved in this, and there's a lot of sexism. She's actually quite capable and quite intelligent, but she, of course, never gets listened to. These nobles are sort of jostling in power, and it's a big old mess. And while all of this internal stuff is happening in France, England's going to go, I bet we could take a lot of land from them right now. And the King of England at the time is a guy named Henry V. Henry V, who is this guy. Good old Henry V. Did Epstein kill himself? He's dead, and he won't be held accountable in the justice system. That is unfortunate. I don't know if he killed himself. All U.S. presidents could be prosecuted as war criminals. We've had that discussion before, and I'm pretty sure the answer is probably yes. I don't know if McKinley was around long enough to be prosecuted as a war criminal. Maybe he was. He did a whole bunch of shady stuff in Hawaii, and I don't know. Maybe there's a lot, right? Anyway, you end up with the Articles of Confederation, right? So this is Henry V. Henry V. So he's going to decide Charles is not in his right mind. France is tearing each other apart. What we should do is just make an open alliance with Burgundy, because they like us anyway. We've sort of played the politics around them anyway. We've got a lot of money and contact with them anyway. We should just say, hey, let's make an alliance, and then we'll support you, and we'll try to get you all sort of in control and in charge. And this actually works like really, really well. This is a really sort of brilliant move here. So he's going to form an alliance with the Burgundians, and this is going to lead to one of the most decisive victories in the entire war. This is 1415, the Battle of Agincourt. And if you've ever seen Shakespeare's play Henry V, this is that big battle that's in the movies or in the play. So if you saw the most recent or seen the most recent one, that's got really ironically Timothy Chalamet, who has the Frenchest French name ever, playing Henry V. The French get demolished at Agincourt. It's really, really, really bad. And what's really sort of embarrassing about this loss is that they had the English drastically outnumbered. But again, it's these darn longbows. A substantial portion of Henry's army isn't even kitted out in armor. They're just longbow people that are shooting the French and then running away. Just shoot the French and then run away. Shoot the French and then run away. He has the prescience as the Kwisatz Haderach. Yeah, that's what happens when you let Henry have access to the spice, right? is basically just the biathlon, right? It's just shooting and running. And it turns out that the French can't keep up with your cavalry, and you end up losing really, really bad. The loss at Agincourt is going to cripple the French military. And this is going to put the English at the highest watermark that they will reach for this entire scenario. With a treaty at a place called Troyes in 1420, and this is sort of the coup to end all coups here. And the way that this goes down is like this: the French, by the way, in the middle of all of this, the Burgundians had taken Paris, so the French king was basically a prisoner in his own country and had lost most of his army and still didn't have his navy recovered. It's rough for the French at this point. Highest watermark until Brexit. The English did way better than this later on, but I get what you're saying. The treaty here is bad. Henry decides that as a side effect of, or as a contingency to this particular treaty, that Charles VI has to allow Henry to marry his daughter. So Henry, King of England, is now going to marry the princess of France. And that's okay. Now Charles VI, he's my pop. He's my dad, right? Well, here's the thing. Charles already had sons, also called Charles, but not directly related to this point. So Henry forces Charles to disinherit his own sons and make Henry his heir. So Henry marries the French princess, then becomes heir of France, and to top it off, to sort of seal the deal, Henry says, and you have to recognize my children as the rightful heirs, not your children. So even if I die, my kid from this marriage to your daughter will be your heir before your own sons will. So this is like real power flex here. It's pretty up in their face, and this is going to go really, really, really sideways really fast. As you might expect, this goes over very poorly in France, because now not only do we have the next king who's going to be English, but also his kids who are going to be king, and they're English too. You think Eleanor would put up with that crap on no female inheritance? Probably. That if Eleanor were alive at that time, she would have had to. She wouldn't have had much to say about it. I mean, Eleanor of Aquitaine, pretty legit leader in her own right, but I don't think the situation would have been significantly different for her. I mean, she could have tried to figure something. She would have been much more involved in the politics of the situation, and may have been able to convince her father or her future husband to do something that would be more to her ability to influence. But I don't know if it would have been much better. Like, France was at its knees at this point. It was in bad shape. Now, that was in 1420. Proper 1420 that was. And nobody got that reference. But that's okay, because that's a deep cut. Anyway, Henry and Charles, they're not spring chickens. They're not the youngest of the kids. Now, Henry V has to immediately go home and make sure that he has a kid, because he wants to make sure that before he croaks there's another son. And he does. He manages to have a son. Now, Charles VI is not young, and he actually does die first. So Charles VI in 1422 is dead. Now, Henry just had a son. The son is 9 months old, and also in 1422, he dies. But that makes Henry VI King of England and France. So how well do you think that's going to go over? Hey, who's your king? A 9-month-old English kid that's never even been to France. Clearly that's going to go over really well, right? We're just going to let that one slide. That the English king, who's a 9-month-old kid, is also now the king of France. But legally speaking, Henry VI, he's the king. He's the king. And you're like, oh, well, that's going to go swimmingly, right? That's going to go super great. It don't. It don't go too good. Now, at the center of this, we have this lady, who is Catherine of Valois. This is Henry's mother, the Princess of France, who just got sold off to Henry V by her father, and then subsequently, her dad died on her. So she's sort of trying to run the regency in England while also try to hang on to any sort of power. Catherine doesn't do very well, unfortunately. Almost immediately. What's going to end up happening is Henry VI's male family members and some of the military leaders are going to put together a council, and they're basically going to tell Catherine to shove off. You're a French princess. You have no right ruling England. Your kid might be the heir, the king, whatever. We're running the show. Now, over in France, we've got an adult who is the son of Charles VI, who would have been the heir had the treaty not gone through. Now, he is going to claim the kingdom of France as his own. But here's the question. How are you going to get coronated when the people that hate you won't let you into the capital city? And how are you going to claim ownership of your own country when you don't really have a big army and the English are everywhere and you're in, I declare ownership, right? You just walk in, I declare that I am king. It doesn't quite work that way. This, by the way, is Charles VII. I don't know why he looks like he's wearing a puffy shirt. He doesn't want to be a pirate. The hat's pretty cool. It's a bold fashion statement. He's wearing it for spite. I got you. I want to wear this shirt and this hat out of spite. Anyway, why not, right? You messed over my family. I'm going to dress however I want to because I'm going to get whatever love and joy that I can get out of this experience and make it my own, right? Were those his pants at the bottom? This here, the sort of paisley looking stuff, that might have been his pants. This could have also maybe been like a robe or perhaps a blanket over his legs. I don't know what this is. I couldn't tell you. He looks like a cross between Putin and an old woman who did Putin's washing for 20 years. I'll give you that. There's definitely some of the like the dead behind the eyes-ness going on here that Putin has. I can see it. That's clearly his grandmother's couch he's leaning on from behind. Okay. He's just leaning up against the armchair. That actually might be it, Cave. He might be leaning on a chair here in repose. That's actually a legitimate claim It does round off here. That's not a bad guess. Not enough 1970s yarn. Yeah, well, if you're going to stand for a photo and you're wearing shoulder pads that big, maybe you do need to prop up on a chair to get yourself some rest, right? Just waiting for the clown makeup to be put on, kind of. Actually does end up being pretty decent, spoiler alert. Anyway, now, so Charles VII claims to be King of France. Henry VI is a child and is the King of France, but he's not been coronated. So who's really the King of France? I didn't know that you were an expert on upholstered armchairs during the 100 Years' War. That's a side of you that I didn't know, my friend. But I'm glad that you are. I will direct all of my early 1400s upholstery questions towards you. So you are now officially that person that I'm going to ask for all of those pressing upholstery needs that I wake up with in the middle of the night. I'm just going to send you a text message. It's going to be at 2 a.m. And it's going to be like, what was that pattern? And you're going to have the name just ready to go, right? Like, clearly that was the Flemish paisley. Duh. Idiot. It's the early Dutch tulip pattern, you moron. Right? So, there we go. God. What's going on, Cave? I hope you're doing well, my friend. I hope things are going well for you. So, we've got a problem. And the problem is we don't really know who the King of France is. We've got two people that might be the King of France. Neither of them have been coronated. One of them has a legitimate claim, and the other one has also a legitimate claim, right? So, what are we going to do about it? And if your answer is kill people and try to figure it out, you're correct. Because that's what we do. We start killing people to see if we can figure it out. Now, in the middle of this, there's going to be an interesting figure that enters the discussion. Her name is Joan. Now, this, by the way, contemporary photo of Joan of Arc. First off, what the devil is she even a thing for in the first place? A lot of people have heard of Joan of Arc, but not necessarily a lot of people know the context. Why is she a thing? How did she even do a thing? Didn't she get killed? Why is she wearing armor? Well, there's a story that goes behind it. Now, France was in bad shape. And when France is in bad shape, people start looking for basically any kind of hope you can find, right? Because it's what we do. We are humans. We can imagine situations where we create options to make hope. And there was this really weird prophecy / prediction that France would be destroyed by a woman, but saved by a virgin. Why does she own more horses than anyone else, right? There's a whole bunch of stuff that's behind this. She was in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. That clearly does mean that she's important. Historically speaking, though, why and for what? Well, as a young girl, Joan sort of felt that she was special. Yet France gets saved by a virgin cow. Not actually a virgin cow, but there's some virgin action. Well, is virgin action a thing, or is that an oxymoron? Anyway, heifer from Rocko's Modern Life. I know that reference. All of Rocko's Modern Life was a gigantic euphemism for, well, you probably know what it was a euphemism for. Anyway, Jodie Foster's daughter and is betrayed by Doogie Howser. Something like that, Tuna. Something like that. That rings a bell, right? Rings a bell. Anyway, so she thought she was special. She's pretty much, and this is not me trying to be rude, she was a nobody. She was a peasant girl that thought that she had a vision from God that had given her the command to go save France. Now, if you are the leadership of France at this point, some peasant girl sort of walks out of the weeds and goes, "Hi, I'm God's chosen liberator of France." You are likely to be put under a bit of skepticism, right? Not everybody's just going to jump on that and go, "Sold. Let's get you some armor." And it turns out that Joan actually has to plead her case a lot of times before anybody actually listens to her. It takes a good several years for her to kind of get like to the point where somebody goes, "Okay, wait a second. I've heard about this, right? There's this weird sort of prophecy thing, and she's claiming to have been sent by God, and she saw this vision. Can we do some testing here?" And she actually does have to submit herself to basically legitimacy testing. I declare relevancy, right? Pretty much. I have not seen the silent movie about Joan of Arc's trial. And yeah, I mean, I know the preference here, Tuna. But anyway, so the concept goes like this. She's going to go talk to some nobility. And the nobility basically go, "Okay, tell me the whole story. Tell me the story." And she's like, "Okay, look, here's the deal. I'm chosen by God. I saw a vision. He told me that I was going to be the liberator of France. And what you're supposed to do is let me get involved. I want to be involved. Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play." And the noble goes, I can tell that you think that you're sincere, but I don't really trust you, so we're going to put you through the ringer." And she then has to go in front of basically like the equivalent of a human lie detector. Like, yeah, this is like a, bless your heart, I appreciate you trying to do what you can for France, but let's not necessarily going to roll the dice on this one. So she has to kind of go in front of these people that are going to determine the veracity of her claim. So she has to recount her story to all of these people, and then she has to go and do the same thing to some people that are in the clergy, right? To basically go, "Hey, clergy people, this is God involved. What do you all think?" And then she has to submit herself to a physical exam to prove that she's a virgin. And after all of this goes through, basically, the people that all interview / examine her go, "We can't prove that she's not the chosen one." And the French are in such a bad position that they're like, so there's no evidence that she's not the chosen one. And they're like, "We can't say that she isn't." And they go, "Well, can you say that she is?" And they go, "We can't say that she isn't." And they're like, "Suit her up, put her in." So they make her some armor. So you're telling me there's a chance? I hear you. So they put her in armor, and they send her to Orleans. And the city in 1429 was under a big siege, and it was about to fall. It was really, really close to falling. And it was surrounded on basically like 3 sides. And this would have been a catastrophic defeat for the French at the time. So she shows up in Orleans, and she's like, "Okay, cool. I'm going to be the banner of God." And so she has this banner made, and she sort of parades through the city, and she's lifting everybody's spirits, and there's all of this like courageous stuff that happens around her. I'm going to be the very best, right? I'm going to be the best God-chosen savior since Jesus, right? And miraculously, and this is actually pretty stark craziness, the fact that Orleans does not fall, and that Orleans ends up holding out against the siege, it's a pretty dramatic reversal of events. And this is sort of like, okay, she's kind of the real deal. And now everybody on the Burgundian side and everybody on the English side is like, oh, she's just a demon. Duh. Like, you all don't see this. Clearly God's not with you because God's with us. I mean, why would God choose the French king? Right? You know? Yeah. So clearly, yeah, she doesn't even go to school. She's like a guy, but like a girl. Why is she wearing armor? That honestly, one of the biggest things that gets under the skin of the Burgundians is that she dresses like a man. For some reason, this just comes up over and over and over again. Like, she's dressing like a man. She's wearing man's clothing. She's just, why? She's not, she's just, I can't take it. They're like freaking out that she's got armor. Like, why is she wearing pants? No, why? And this comes up, and I'm not even joking here, like, all the time when they're writing letters. It comes up in her trial, spoiler alert, as one of the things that they want her to do as a way to not get dead is to recant and stop dressing like a man. Just stop dressing like a man, right? I know, it's crazy. It just drives them crazy. It just blows their mind. Now, with Orleans free again, the tide turns just a little bit. And there's a bit of a sea change moment that's kind of happening here. And in the remainder part of 1429, Joan shows up at several other battles, and the French win them all. And this really does start the legend where it's like, dude, where she shows up, we're going to win because she's chosen by God. And this actually scares some of the other people on the other side, right? The English don't like this very much, and the Burgundians are even kind of getting a little wishy-washy here. They're like, okay, now the French king, like Charles VII's forces, look like they're doing okay, and it looks like the English might not win this one. So the Burgundians kind of make a calculated risk here. They're like, what if we let Charles VII come to Paris to kind of get ordained and crowned, and we kind of just let that happen? We're not going to go friendly with him, but what if we let that happen? And then they're all like, no, that can't happen. We can't let him get crowned king. But there are people that are like, I don't know, man. English, they don't have God's messenger on their side, aka a devil or a demon. We can't really stand up to supernatural power. We don't have like we were talking about mutants earlier. We don't have an apocalypse of our own here, right? But despite all odds, Charles VII's forces end up breaking in and getting him crowned king in Paris. So now we have a different scenario, because technically speaking, Charles VII is no longer claiming to be the King of France. He has been crowned the King of France. Everyone was just distracted by a woman in armor because hot. Maybe so. Again, there you go. Also, very young, 17. So take that as you will. It would be hot in a suit of armor, right? It doesn't breathe very well. Apparently has pretzel elbows, right? So... Are you not entertained? Is that not why you are here? Aristotle, what's up, man? I saw that you started like about the same time that I did, and I was like, crap, Eris is streaming, and I'm not going to be able to raid him, and I bet he's going to raid me. Not that I don't mind you coming over, but I like being able to participate in your streams. What up, everybody? Bengals, what's up? Agni, how's it going, my friend? Welcome in. You didn't want to leech my viewers. It's all good, man. It's all good. There are plenty of viewers to go around, and you're a great streamer, so I don't mind it at all. So for everybody coming in that might not know who I am, hello, my name is Shane. I teach history and sociology at college. I got a lot of love for the field of history, and I don't think that it has to be boring. So we try to talk about history here in a way that is approachable and fun, and we goof off and tell really bad jokes and all of this weird stuff. And if you are in my chat and you're not already following Aristotle, you really should be. I don't know why my bot isn't working. We'll just do the long version because apparently my alerts will work, but my shout-out command won't. But go follow Aristotle because he's a smart dude. He's got a PhD in philosophy. This guy talks a lot on stream, and it'll make your brain wrinkle in the right way, right? So let me say hey to everybody. Agni, what's up, man? Good to see you. How's it going? Pretty sure this crowning has a recent episode of House of the Dragon. Maybe so. What's up? Noger, how's it going? Walterverse, what's going on, man? It's good to see you. I'm glad that you're doing well. I hope that the world is treating you nicely. It's always good to see the Walterverse in. Tindarios, how's it going? How's it going? Shane corrects all my errors about Greek and Roman history and mythology. I don't correct all of them, but I am always happy to answer questions if you got them. Welcome in, everybody. We are tonight talking about the 100 Years' War. And we just lifted the siege of Orleans, and we're talking about Joan of Arc. He doesn't correct all of them. I don't correct all of them. Because I don't know everything. I'm just going to be for real. I don't know everything. I know a lot of stuff, but I don't know everything, right? So yeah, we're to the point where Joan of Arc is basically doing her own thing and running the show, and people think that she's a devil, or people think that she's literally God's chosen savior of France. You're potentially going to be in a production of Shakespeare's Henry VI Part 1. Okay. You're right around our area because we're talking about old Henry VI right now, who at this point is only a child, like toddler, terrible 2 kind of kid. That's the Henry VI Part 1 is a lot later on in his life, but you know we're getting towards that zone, correct? Anyway, so Charles VII just managed to get into Paris to get himself coronated. He was previously disinherited when the English forced his dad to give up the throne. Basically, we're in a big old war. We're roughly speaking at the year 1429, 1430. We may as well go ahead and roll over into 1430. In 1430, the Burgundians managed to capture Joan of Arc. Now, this is a big old mess because she was supposed to be God's chosen person that was going to lead the French side to victory. Her being captured by the bad guys is a big old bad sign. Now, of course, the Burgundians are like, you're a demon. And she's like, no, God's chosen. And they're like, you're the devil. And they're like, no, God's chosen. And they're like, devil demon. And they just can't get over this. So, of course, they're going to put her on trial, right? And this happens in 1431. And the trial goes pretty badly, as you might expect. They throw every potential charge at her that they possibly can. They make up a whole bunch of stuff about her being in Congress with Satan. They make up her being a demon herself. They say that she's clearly a heretic. Even if she is a human being, she's a heretic, like, hands down. She's blasphemed. One of the ways that she had blasphemed was by, again, wearing these man clothes. Like, you're not supposed to wear man clothes, right? You don't do that. She was not a demon. She was a tiefling, right? She's half demon. There's a human side to it too, right? That's where the emotion comes in. They just live a long time and have horns. Chill out. Anyway, so they throw all kinds of charges against her, and of course, there's no way she's getting out of this. The only way that she was going to get out of this was basically to recant everything, say that everything was wrong, say that everything was a lie, and she's not going to do that. So she gets convicted of heresy, and they burn her at the stake. And then when they're done burning her, they throw her body in the river, the Seine River, which is not a good Christian burial and has a lot of connotation behind it. But there's a big mess that happens here because of this whole thing. The wars had gone on at this point for a long time, right? We've been fighting on and off for more than 100 years or so at this point. 1328 to 1430, about 102 years. And it's kind of getting old. Even the French Civil War had, at this point, been going on for almost 30 years. And everybody just is kind of tired, right? Like, after you've been fighting this much, it's just tired. Well, yeah, I mean, she said that she had visions where God had chosen her to be the savior of France. And you don't get to make those kind of claims easily. You didn't know French people would go further than their... Oh, bad form. Anyway, everybody's kind of tired of fighting. So what do you do when that happens? Well, if you are the Burgundians, who again were French, right? They were part of the Kingdom of France. They were just one of the families that was a big family in France. You kind of have to start weighing your options here. And they start deciding to do some stuff that doesn't really jive well with the English. Right before he dies, one of the heads of the Burgundy family is going to decide that he's kind of tired of seeing all of his people die in the war. And so he gives Paris back to Charles VII. And this is a big sort of like, what are you doing to the alliance move? The English don't like that. It doesn't sit well with them. And this is going to start sort of swinging the tide back away from the English. It had already been turning when Joan was doing her thing. But this is like a big symbolic win where the Burgundians are basically going to say, we're not friendly with you, Orleans House. We're not particularly a fan of you, Charles VII. But we also are kind of tired of the whole fighting thing. And the French are going to, the King of France, Charles VII, is going to use this as a springboard to launch a big series of attacks against the English. And this is going to be sort of the beginning of the end. This is going to be a big string of victories that's capped off in 1450 with a big battle at a place called Formigny, which is a big deal because the French are going to use cannons. And we haven't talked about cannons because they weren't really used very much by the continental Europeans at this time. So the British, I'm sorry, I keep saying the British, the English and the French don't really have firearms at this point that are common, but the French are going to start recognizing how good they are. Now, this is, of course, technology that had made its way up from the Ottoman Empire across the Silk Road. Formigny is a big victory for the French. They're going to end up taking what is basically the last little holdout place of Normandy that the English had. Then they're going to turn on Gascony, and they're going to go, we're just going to take all of this. There's a big siege at Bordeaux in 1451. They end up taking that city, which was the capital. There's going to be a big battle at a place called Castellon in 1453, and this is going to be kind of the last real big battle of the war at Castellon. 1453. The English are going to lose really, really badly to the French. And specifically, they're going to really lose badly to these cannon. This is a new leveler of the playing field. Your English longbows are not going to be equivalent to French cannon. And after the fall of this sort of last little holdout, this little last bastion down in southern France called Gascony, which is basically this area right down here. After that, the English are going to be out of position, and they're not going to have a toehold inside of the French territory anymore. So this is kind of it. Now, you would think, okay, the English have lost all of their territory in France. They have lost their potential claim to the throne because Charles VII is a strong king. He's in charge now. Surely this is it. It's not really it. They don't make a formal peace to end this for decades more in the future. But this is, in 1453, the end of the war for all violent intents and purposes. Now, they don't know that. We know that historically, looking backwards with our hindsight. But for about the next 20 years, England and France were always just one bad twist or one little domino away from going right back at it. Because Henry VI still had a legitimate legal claim to the entire kingdom of France. And he didn't give that up just because Charles VII said you don't have that anymore. So the tenuous position between England and France is not going to get solved just because the French had cannon and ran the English off the continent. It doesn't get solved that easily. They don't like each other. They still hate each other's guts. And there's still like just one wrongly worded letter or one snide remark or one perceived faux pas away from going right back at it again. Now, they don't end up going fully back at it again for a little while, but this is basically the end of the 100 Years' War period, which actually went 116 years again. So I know that was really fast, and I know that was a lot of ups and downs and ins and outs and backs and forths. But again, when you're doing this much history in one stream, you sort of have to be economic when it comes to time. So we kind of hit the high points. There are a lot of other battles. There are a lot of other really interesting people that are involved. But we got the main story down. So there you go. That was the 100 Years' War. So I hope that was everything that everybody wanted it to be. Again, this was a viewer request, and this is voted on and chosen by you, the viewers. So, mazel tov. So that is all that I had prepared, but that of course doesn't mean that we all have to like run away. I'm disappointed. If the war lasted 100 years, the stream should take at least that long. We're not doing 100 Years' War real time, Moose. There would be a lot of dead years where we just didn't talk about anything. Woman in pants is worse than woman as a demon. Got it. If that's the lesson you took away, I hear you, right? I hear you. Hey, Tad, what's going on, man? I see you sneaking in there. How's it going? Did I just say Napoleon? Woman in pants? No, Napoleon is decidedly not a woman. Interesting figure, though. All right. Now, if anybody has any questions about this period of time, or if anybody wants to redeem any channel points or stuff like that, now would be the time to do so. But it is time for us to choose... Is Napoleon a Gundam? Kind of. So there is a French Gundam... okay, so here... Alright. There's a series called G Gundam. And Mobile Fighter G Gundam. And the premise of the show is like this. Basically, we live distant future, and humans have pretty much wrecked the Earth, and we live in these colonies up in space. But these colonies up in space are still divided by nationality because, humans. We don't get luxury space communism, as Aristotle so frequently refers to. And all of the colonies make Gundams, and they send them down to Earth. And all of these Gundams are some of the worst examples of racial profiling that I've ever seen in my life. The Gundam from Neo Mexico is literally called Tequila Gundam, and it's got a giant sombrero. Anyway, the French Gundam is called Gundam Rose, and it's got a rapier, and it's got like a quarter cloak. Exactly, Tad knows it. This is what. This is the cry of Domon Kashu, who is the main character in the series, who fights with first Shining Gundam, then Burning Gundam, which in Japan it was called God Gundam, but of course you can't call that God Gundam in America because, so we changed the name of it to Burning Gundam. Gundams are like the Miss Universe national costumes. Well, anyway, you all send them down to Earth and they all fight, and whoever wins gets to run the United Nations in space, basically, for the next year. The Gundam from France is called Gundam Rose, and in some of the manga based on some of the TV show stuff, there is Napoleon Gundam, which is sort of like the next evolution of Gundam Rose. So kind of. It's not on a TV show, and they don't make a kit of it, but it kind of exists in the lore, if you will. So there we go. All right, so Tuna says, what's in the news? Something besides the Cheeto. Okay. Finland has joined NATO, but I think everybody probably knows about that. So that's probably a bit of a cop-out on my part. But Finland joined NATO. That's a pretty big deal. And it's official now. Now, what else have we got going on? Let's see. Oh, we haven't talked about this on stream. This happened a couple of weeks ago, but it's significant, and we didn't talk about it. Netanyahu, the leader of Israel, has officially backed down on some very controversial judicial overhauls. And this was a really big deal. So basically, Israel doesn't have a constitution like a lot of other countries have constitutions. They have sort of a floating legal system where precedent and the judicial system has a lot more impact to determine what is legal and what is not legal. Now, Netanyahu's party and his coalition, who are all very conservative and include... his particular coalition includes the most conservative Jewish parties, sort of like the Orthodox Jewish parties. One of the things that they were pushing was this package of judicial reforms, which would effectively put any decision made by the judiciary under review that could basically get it overturned by the government. So that the parliament could, in Israel it's called the Knesset, could overturn judicial decisions. Now, that by itself is a questionable premise on just the face of it, but the separation of powers in Israel are not the same as the separation of powers in America, right? So it's not the same. But what's really interesting here, and what a lot of people saw as a potential motivation for this, is that Netanyahu himself is currently under a lot of investigation and is potentially about to face charges for stuff like campaign violations, bribery scandals, embezzlement stuff, improperly taking gifts, a lot of things. and any decision that would be passed against him could then basically just be sort of nullified by his controlling party, and he could continue on. There were huge protests in Israel over this, and people that have in history of Israel been very quiet about a lot of things really got upset about this, including the military. The Israeli military had previously been basically about as conservative as you could get. The Israeli military, especially people that were in like reservist positions, had started vocally speaking out about this. Some people were refusing to show up for training or drills, and a lot of them were showing up at protests. And Netanyahu was determined to push these through, and got down to basically the wire of actually making it work, and then decided at the last minute to back off. And a lot of people, especially in the sort of external media sphere, saw this as a gigantic loss for Netanyahu. And a lot of people were very, very happy. Now, technically speaking, what Netanyahu said was that he was postponing them until further review could happen. But his own ministers had started speaking out against this. He had fired a minister who had spoken out against the judicial reform, and then 2 more quit after that. And then another one ended up writing a big open letter that criticized the decision. It was getting pretty tumultuous for Netanyahu. So him backing down off of that was a really, really big deal. And I even saw a couple of people saying that this was the sign that his sort of stranglehold over the Israeli political system was at an end. Netanyahu's been in power for a long time. Now, he hasn't been an unbroken prime minister throughout the entire period of time that he's been in politics, but he has been a dominant figure for a long time. So that was a really big deal, and we didn't talk about that on stream, so I figure like it's probably a good time to do it. Is that the same manga with Jumping Gundam? Maybe, but I'm not sure, Tad. I am not very well read in the Gundam manga world. Part of it is because it's hard to find all of it in translation, and part of it is that giant robots where everything is an angle without color makes my brain go crazy, and it's hard for me to track what's going on a lot of times. NATO now has thousands of miles to defend against communism. Well, they had borders with Russia as well. Oh, wow. And Russia. I don't know what the joke is there. Are we talking about Sweden being communist? Is that the joke there, Maddie? I'm missing the joke if that's the joke. But there we go. And yeah, the Knesset is only like a unicameral legislature. It only has one house. All right, so what I need to do is I need to look at the list. Oh, yeah, I'm with you. Okay. I didn't know if that was some, like, current kind of dig. All right, so here's the list. These are people that have said that they want to buy viewer request episodes. And I'll go down the list. There are only 2 names on the list, so if you are here, make yourself known. David, are you here? If you are David Peterson and want to buy a stream, make yourself known. JMR Killer, if you are here, make thyself known, and we shall let you buy a stream. While we're waiting to see if those people are around, let me do some additional shout outs, because we've got a lot of cool people in the chat. I'm going to have to do it the long way, aren't I? We've got Allie Briggs. Allie Briggs is an amazing artist and is soon to be somebody with the art badge here on the stream. I'm David. We've got Evolve Yourself TV. Oh, it's timing me out. I can't I can't do the shout out for more than 2 minutes. Friggin' tell me if I can't do a shout out. Let me see if it'll work the regular way. No, it won't work the regular way. Of course it won't. Well, I guess I'll wait 2 minutes before I do shout outs. That's jerk face. Oh, Streamlabs updated its terms of service, and that means it logged me out of everything, which means it's not going to let me do anything. Cloudbot. Oh, yeah, look, you turned my bot off. Yeah, I know you did, you jerk. Boom. Ha. Everybody go follow Evolve Yourself TV. My friend Agni is a chess tutor in real life and plays chess on stream. And he also does guided meditation and talks philosophy. Cool guy. You'll have a good time. We've got Noger Zero in the room, who is a philosophy guy as well, but reads published papers on stream. Stuff that is, you might consider this material like outside of your wheelhouse, but Noger has a really great way of breaking stuff down so that you can get into it. We've got Nick Solotl in stream, who is an artist and 2.5D animator, and is the creator of the head pat emote for the puppy. Go follow Nick Solotl. Show some love there. Did I get everybody? I think I got everybody, but I'm not. Nope. I didn't get everybody. Go follow my friend the Cave Geek, who does art on stream occasionally. Now has shifted a bit to doing like arts and crafts, so also stuff like build stuff. Like, I'm going to do electrical stuff or play games. Anyway, go hang out with Cave Geek because he's a smart dude. Really cool guy. I really appreciate his humor. And he says nice things and makes me feel good about myself. So go follow Cave Geek and he'll say all the mean things about me when I'm not there, right? That's what a good friend does, right? Talks you up to your face and then tears you down behind your back, right? That's what good friends do, right? All right, so I'm not seeing either David or JMR in the chat. So now we have open call. K-Geeks is a horrible person who risked all of our lives just for fun. How did the finale go last night? I didn't get a chance to see it. I saw you post about Xenonauts' final version, or final level, but I did get a chance to tune in. I was pretty zonked last night and just kind of sat on the couch and played video games and zoned out. History of makeup. I don't know. I mean, I know I've said I could probably do that one. That one would be tough. Anyway, what we're looking for right now, first off, if you have 10,000 adventure points, so you see the little hat below you. If you've got 10,000 adventure points, and you have never bought a stream, and you have an idea for a stream, now is your time to say so. You have 9.8K, almost there, not quite. And we've already done the Polish-Lithuanian Empire. History of Greek romance. I'm not even sure what I would do with that. Are you just talking about like the history of Greek people having sex? So does anybody have 10K and an idea? If so, I will open it up. Your big fat Greek wedding. Relationships doesn't have to be all about sex. I don't know what that one would be. I don't know what I would talk about in that one. whatever it is, it needs Windex. We've already done History of Pirates too. We did History of Pirates as a viewer request way back when. That's okay. So what I'm hearing is nobody has 10K and an idea. So does anybody that has bought one before have 20K and an idea? What is the longest unbroken chain of rulers where unbroken means the eldest child successfully inherited? Probably Japanese Empire. The Japanese imperial family right now is the same Japanese imperial family that it's been since about 300, so like 1700 years. In Europe. It's a tough one to say. Unbroken father to son stretch. Might be England. Might be England. The Swedish have a long run of things, but like I don't. Are we talking about years? Or are we talking about rulers? Because that's a different situation. Is the Japanese thing the oldest living heir? I mean, it's not like every single one was passed down from father to son to father to son to father to son, but it's still the same family. Like it has been a cousin a couple of times, and it's been like an uncle a couple of times. But yeah, a brief history of time. Monaco has 8 centuries. I was thinking kings. No, like I mean, I know that the guy that is there now considers himself noble and stuff like that, but Monaco's never really been a kingdom. But I mean, I guess the question was ruling noble, so yeah, that would probably be it. But if that's the case, then like, I mean, Eswatini has a king that's still in king now. I mean, there's a lot of criteria there, and I probably don't know enough of those questions to answer that well. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We'll just do a poll. All right, let me make a new poll. All right. What were these ideas that we threw out earlier? All my shout outs. All right, so we've done Polish Lithuanian Empire, Roman Morocco. That's way too long. That's the issue, because it's like 600-700 years. I don't think I could do that much in one situation. All right, we'll put makeup on there. I don't like that idea because I just don't know what the heck I would talk about. But I said I would give it a shot, so I'll put it on the list. I'm going to veto Greek romance. I don't even know what I would talk about at all on that one. Some of the stuff is like on the wrong end of stuff. Like it's just too narrow. Lego is a bit too modern. Napoleon, that was on the list last time. We'll put that one back on the list. Should have defined this better. What I was trying to aim at is working succession where the system wasn't meaningfully disputed. It was like a chain of like 4 or 5 people. Nobody really disputed the Japanese Empire. The vast majority of imperial transitions were like super smooth in Japan. Eleanor of Aquitaine's on the list. Is there anything in India history you would be fun? Yeah, I mean we've done a crap ton of stuff in India. So the problem with just saying Cyprus, Frank, is that it's way too long of a period. So I've got about an hour and a half, and there's a sweet spot of material where it's like there are topics that are too big to cover, like Cyprus, right? The history of Cyprus goes all the way back to the Neolithic period. So we would be looking at like 10,000 years of history, which is like it's just impossible to cram all of that into one stream. And the other end of that is like just talk about how Greek people had relationships with each other. And I'm not saying that either of those are bad ideas, but the other one is like just way too narrow, right? Like I would have to go read books on that. I don't think I could talk about that for an hour and a half. I would say like Greek women didn't have a lot of rights, and men basically considered them property, and there wouldn't be a lot of individual material that I could necessarily apply to that. The mutiny on the Bounty. I don't know if I could stretch. Yeah, that was probably going to be like that. That would end up being a bit too narrow. I don't know if I could. I mean, I could. We could just watch the movie, right? Darwin. We can talk about Darwin. All right, here we go. Everybody go vote. Do 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 do. Everybody wants Darwin. And please understand that when I say stuff like, I don't think we could do that episode, that doesn't mean that I don't find it interesting, and that doesn't mean that I don't think that it's a good idea. The issue here is that I know the parameters that I have set for myself, and when I think about some of these ideas, my first guess is my first question is, how would I make that topic fit these parameters? And if it doesn't fit in nicely, I have to kind of give it a second go of I don't know, and then if it doesn't fit in again, then I have to kind of be like, that's going to take too much work. Now, so the work thing is actually kind of a deal. The reason the work thing is a deal is that I try really hard to not make the stream stuff a job, because the stream stuff is stuff that I do and I appreciate, and I do make money off of it, and I appreciate everybody supporting me for it. But I don't need another job, because if it becomes burdensome, then I'm just going to stop doing it, right? And I'm not trying to say like, if you all make me do these things, I'm going to stop doing it. That's not what I'm saying, right? I'm saying that I have built in parameters and safeguards to keep me from burning out, because a lot of this stuff is stuff that I would have to go do serious research on. Because I mean, I know that I know a lot of stuff, and I know that you all joke like, oh, he knows everything. I really don't. A lot of the stuff that comes up sometimes as suggestions are things that I would have to do a lot of research on. So please don't ever take it personally if I go, I don't think I could do that. That mostly just means I'm ignorant of it and I don't know what I would talk about. And that usually means that I would have to go dig up a whole lot of information and spend a lot of time like working and doing a lot of prep stuff. Yeah. Alchemy and the research of the Philosopher's Stone. We could talk about alchemy. I could do alchemy. How much have I found on that? So there was a book published back in like the late 90s where it talked about this guy that found the Philosopher's Stone, and he was trying to keep it safe from this really bad wizard. And there's a whole bunch of shenanigans involved and some trolls and stuff like that. But this is, of course, Harry Potter, right? This is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Nicholas Flamel, yeah. So, yeah, there we go. All right. Girl Forest says he's got 10K, or sorry, I don't know if you are a he. Girl Forest has 10K for Alchemy right now. I guess we could plan him out ahead of time. Forrest, have you purchased a stream before? I don't think you have. I think I might be confusing you with another person. I don't think Forrest has purchased a stream before. Have you? You can correct me if I'm wrong. Nope, first time. Okay, let's do this then. Channel points. Alright, Grow Forest. It has been activated, and you may purchase it at your discretion. And this is okay, because we'll just plan out ahead of time, and that's fine. Vern, did you just assume that I was in Gryffindor house? Alchemy! So I am very much not a Gryffindor. I am a Ravenclaw. But I don't think that's much of a surprise. I don't know. People. I ask my students this all the time. It's the Sorcerer's Stone in America. It's Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Getting Hufflepuff or Slytherin vibes. See, I get all of the houses. People will give me all of the stuff. The Sorting Hat wouldn't even reach my head. He's a pompous know-it-all. He's gotta be Ravenclaw. Like a hybrid, like a Slitherpuff or a Hufflerin. Hufflerin. I'm definitely sarcastic enough to be in the Slytherin world, and I do quite like practical jokes, which is like Fred and George Weasley, who are of course Gryffindors. You were resorted into Ravenclaw after finally being okay with being Hufflepuff. Well, remember, Vern, you get to decide. If you're in between, you get to pick, right? I am not ready for the Harry Potter reboot on Netflix. I don't think that there's any need to remake that into a TV show. I think this is. I also think it's on HBO. I don't think it's on Netflix, or it might be Netflix. I don't know. I thought I read that it was on HBO. I don't think we need that reboot yet. Like, I don't think we need the Moana live action reboot yet. That movie came out like not too long ago. It's immaterial because you're more likely to be at Ilvermorny. Yeah, I think I'm the Feathered Serpent House. I can't remember the actual word. But it's not a reboot. It's a live action okay, well, call it what you will. It's a desperate grab for more money. So, I saw a really funny tweet that said Disney is running out of animated stuff to make live action versions of, that they're catching up. All right, so now we've got two stuff, or two whatchamacallers. What am I saying here? Viewer requests stretched out in the front, which is okay, but that's going to be like a month's worth of time before we get to both of those. If you have such low-hanging fruit, would you make more money? Why wouldn't you? I don't know. If you've got Disney level money, do you really need more money? Which house is a desperate grasp for? That would be Slytherin. Naked Ambition is very much Slytherin. Hey, Harry Potter, how's it going? It's all good. I'm a Muggle too, man. It's all good. No, don't worry about that. Nothing to do with Harry Potter because you never read any of it. I just went to a fancy grammar school. Oh, well, look at you. I think I remember you talking about that. Paradox, that sounds like Wampus House. Welcome in, Harry Potter. I hope that you're having a good one. Don't feel bad about being a muggle. We all have muggle days, right? And that's perfectly fine. All right. Let's go see who he's going to go raid. Who we going to raid? I don't know who we going to raid. Who's around? Probably about to go raid. Let's see what's going on.
Ooh, new nuggets.
I don't want to watch a KFC commercial for chicken nuggets. I'm already hungry as it is. The thing is, like, there should be raid finder modes for streamers that skip ads. Yeah, there should be. There really should be. I was trying to find somebody that we haven't raided recently, but everybody that I have online is somebody that we've raided within like the last couple of months. So, or last few weeks, which is fine. Like, if I brought you there the first time, I don't mind bringing you back. I think the person that we have raided the least recently is Skittle. Let's go raid a Blue Skittle, who is a delightful artist that does usually scenery art and rendering. Skittle's a good person though. Like, you can tell just by interacting that Skittle's the good kind of person. So let's go raid a Blue Skittle. VODs are back on, right? Yeah, so all of the VODs for everything except for tonight are published, and then when I get off of stream tonight, I'll publish tonight's VOD. But yeah, you can go to the videos page and then click collections, and then you can go back through the viewer request and the adventures in history stuff. So that's it. Anyway, we're going to go raid Skittle. Why are we not doing the raid thing? It's supposed to be raiding. Why are we not raiding? I'm already raiding. Okay, so something is going screwy and I don't know what's going on here. Let me cancel this. Why are we not seeing this? Why am I not seeing my raid countdown? Okay, well, I guess we're just going to go raid Skittle, yell adventure, throw some adventure hats in this stream, and yeah, there we go. So I'll see everybody. I don't think this is actually raiding right now. I don't think this is raiding at all. You are already raiding a Blue Skittle. How am I already raiding a Blue Skittle?
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus!
Grethar with this sniper at the last minute.
I'm Spartacus!
Grethar, thank you so much for that subscription. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna put in another streamer and see if I can get them to, like,
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus. Moose, thank you for being Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
Okay, I don't think I can raid anybody right now. Let me see if I can do it this way. So my whole dashboard is apparently messed up. Let me see if I can do it the manual way. Aha, there we go. All right. So now we've actually got the raid going. And for some reason, I can't see it because of the hype train. Do we actually have a raid going, or do we not have a raid going? You already have a raid in progress. Okay, so here's the deal. I have no idea what's happening right now. Stream is going screwy. I apparently can't raid, so I'm just going to put up the outro screen, and I'll see everybody on Thursday. We'll be talking about history stuff, Frankish kingdoms, and how everything falls apart after Charlemagne is dead. So I'll just see everybody Thursday, and you all take it easy. Have a good one, and I'll see you next time.